Welcome back, Algebra, to our third unit. We're really rolling now. And we're starting this unit with a little review for you boot camp people. And that is graphing using the slope-intercept method. So this is an 8th grade topic. This is something you absolutely need to know. This is not something we can skip and just say, oh, that was for 8th graders. You will not be able to do a ton of the things that we need to do this year without knowing this. So, if I go a little fast, just know that I'm doing that because there was a bunch of you who had already done this over the summer, and for those of you who didn't, you might just need to watch it maybe one more time, pay a little more attention when we work on this in class. Okay, so right here it says the equation for a line. So if we're graphing lines, and that's what we're going to start with, I know it doesn't say that in the title, but we're graphing lines. Oh, and it does say that in the learning target. It says, I can solve linear functions for y, then graph them. So linear meaning line. It's right in, I'm using the white marker. It's right in the name, line. So linear is line-like. So it's a linear function that we are going to graph. And the standard, not standard form. Standard form something looks a little different, but it's not useful for us. We want the slope-intercept form of a line, and it always looks like this. Y equals mx plus b. Y and x are just coordinates. So the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and they always stay y and x when we write an equation. They stay those two letters. But m and b are always numbers. M represents the slope, something we'll get really in depth with on the next video. And then b is the y-intercept. And y-intercept is a very simple concept that we'll talk about too. It's where the line crosses the y-axis. And for now, we're just going to think of slope as kind of the tilt of the line. How fast does it go up and down? How fast or how slow does it go? So if it's a really flat line, it has a small slope. If it goes really steep, it's a high slope. So we're going to test this out with just some simple things. At the bottom here it says, name the slope and y-intercept for each of the following. So this is in the correct form. Notice y equals, that's the m right next to the x, in the b. So that's the y-intercept. So it's in the right form. We don't have to work extra hard to find the slope and y-intercept. We can just say the slope is 3 and the y-intercept is 2. For the next one, some people get a little confused because they just see a negative in front of the x, but remember that's a -1. So the slope is -1. In the y-intercept, you have to include the signs with it, so that's -5. You never include the x. When someone asks you what the slope is, it should never include x. It's just a number. Alright, let's see what's next here. Oh, a couple more examples of the same thing. So in this case, the slope is 1/2, and the y-intercept is -4. And over here, again, just as easy, -2/3 and 1. When it's in the right format, when it's in slope-intercept format, it's really easy to come up with the slope and y-intercept. And we're going to reverse it here. If you're given the slope and the y-intercept, we're going to have to write the equation. So remember, every equation starts like this. And we're just replacing the m and the b with the correct values. So in this case, it's y equals -x. You can put a 1 if you want, but I'm not going to. Plus 4, and then y equals 2x plus 3 over here. So this has all been very easy when they just hand you things that are in the correct form already. It gets a little tougher when things are not in slope-intercept form. We have a bunch of equations down here, we're not going to do all of them, that are not written in the form that we would like them to be written in. Remember, the form we want is y equals mx plus b. So that means we want the y to be solved for. We want the y on the left side in terms of x, with these two on the right also. So that's your main goal, is to get everything except for y off to the right side. So in this first one here, 2y, we don't want that 2. So we're going to divide by 2. But that means I have to divide everything by 2. That gives me y equals 2x minus 5. And there you go. One step and it's in the correct form. the next one. Y is almost by itself, kind of. I'm going to... Now, I could just get rid of the 7, but then I have this pesky negative on the y still, and I don't like having just a negative. So I'm actually going to move the y over to the left side, where we like it anyways. And I get y plus 5x equals 7. And then I just need to move the 5x to the other side. So I'm kind of swapping spots, the 5x and the y. And I get y equals... Now, this is where you can make a choice here. I could write 7 minus 5x, but remember, I kind of want the x term first if I'm going to be consistent. So negative 5x, keep that part there, plus 7. Alright, so here's what you're going to do if you're a good kid. You are going to try as many of these as you can. Well, first you're going to pause the video, and then you're going to try as many as you can, and then hit play, and in a couple seconds they'll all fill in with the correct answers. So go ahead, pause it now. Ta-da! Alright, so a couple things. The last two there, y equals 9, that is in slope-intercept form. You have to imagine what the slope would have been to make the x go away. And the only thing that can make things go away is by multiplying by 0. So in that case, that has a slope of 0, which is a completely flat line. Again, we'll talk more about that next class. And then the last one, there's no last number. There's no the b part. So 5/8x, that's just a weird looking slope. And what a 0 slope, or excuse me, 0 y-intercept means is it crosses through the origin, the middle of the graph, because it's at 0, y equals 0. Alright. We are going to get into how to actually graph a line now. So you're going to be able to draw, use a ruler, use your graph paper. The first thing you want to do whenever you're given an equation is to make sure you figure out what the slope and y-intercept is. And that might mean rearranging it so that it's solved for y, or it might just mean writing down m and b because it's already in the format you want. So that could be a longer step, or it could be really just a simple step. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to put a point on the y-axis at the y-intercept. We always start with the y-axis. I have a little saying, well, I guess I don't know how I would spell what I said, but begin with b. I was going to write b-gin, but that would be silly. And then 3, do the slope to find the next 2 points. We'll explain that. It is not a new dance craze, unless you want it to be. I'd love to see video of it. Number 4, and then you draw a straight line, and we mean straight line. That means you use a ruler. I don't care how surgically perfect you can make lines, I can tell it's not with a ruler. It's faster anyways. And if you don't have a ruler at home or wherever you're working on your stuff, just take junk mail, take the side at least of another piece of paper, a pencil. Something will work better than just eyeballing it. And then 5, you need to label axes. Make sure you label x and y axes, and the line using the equation of that line. You have to get used to that. Oh, and I forgot, I skipped the with arrows part on number 4. If you don't draw arrows, it's not a line. It's a line segment. If you draw one arrow, it's a ray, not a line. So make sure you indicate with arrows that there is in fact a line that goes forever. Alright, here we go. So this time, the same equation that we had in the beginning, but this time there's a big old graph next to it. So the equation is y equals negative 2x minus 2. And if you remember from when we practiced, this is the slope, this is the y-intercept. Remember, y equals mx plus b. So we write down the slope, we write down the y-intercept. Most of the time, these two things are not going to be there to remind you to do that. And then here we go. We start off on with the same number. We want to start here. So we're starting with a negative 2 for the y-intercept. So we take a look at the y-axis, which is this vertical line down the middle here, and we want to go to negative 2. And we put a big, juicy dot right there. Alright, that's where it's kind of like pinning the line. Now I have to figure out what angle it's at. Alright, slope is -2. Slope of -2. What on earth does that mean? Well, I know it's a negative slope, so it's going to go downhill. So I know it's going to go in that direction. So you always, just like a book, you go from left to right. And when it's negative, left to right goes downhill. Now, slope, we have a little saying. Is rise over run. It's a relationship between x and y, really. And when a slope has, when slope is -2, it's really -2 for every one x. So down y twice for every one x to the right. And that's what that means. So basically, if it's not already a fraction, we turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1. It's sort of like if you're going 30 miles per hour, you don't think of that as a fraction, but if you did 30 over 1, that means 30 miles per 1 hour. And in this case, it's down 2 for every 1 over. Because if you just kept going down 2, every slope would look the same. It would just look like a vertical line. So we want to count. We want to go down 2, right 1. And you do that a few times. Down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. You're kind of making stairs. And in this case, these stairs, kind of steep downhill stairs. Now, I can't really use a ruler. I could use the line tool, but it's almost more difficult. So you have to excuse my own hypocrisy. Here we go. Y equals, so I'm remembering that last step, which is to label. Y equals -2x minus 2, and I didn't label my y or my x-axis, so there we go. That's everything. We're going to do one more of these so that we can save some for class. And this number 2 here, it's y equals -3 plus x. So you ask yourself, is this in the format that I need it in to come up with m and b? And technically it's no, even though you can probably guess what they are, because all that really happened is that these two are swapped. So if I rewrite it, it's y equals x minus 3. You just have to remember when you swap it, you bring the negative with it. The 3 needs to stay negative. Just because we moved it, it doesn't change signs. So now my m, or my slope, equals that number right there, which is the invisible 1. And my y-intercept, or b, is the -3. Alright, so it's pretty close to what the last one started at. This starts at -3 on the y-axis, right there. But this time, my slope is positive, so I know it goes up. And the relationship is, it goes up 1 for every 1 to the right. So 1 becomes 1 over 1. And these are really easy to graph because you just kind of go in diagonal pattern. Up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. Try to avoid using, when you're describing to someone or you're answering one of the questions in class, avoid using the word over because it's very not specific. It gets very lazy, and I don't know if that means left to right, and I don't know if you know if it means left to right. So we try to say, and you can yell at me when I say it, because once in a while it comes out of my mouth too. So we say up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. In general, my rule is you always go to the right. It's just whether you go up or down first. So y equals x minus 3. You don't have to write the original equation down, because we're just labeling. We're not doing a check. And there it is. Alright. Hopefully that made some sense. For a lot of you, of course it did, because you did it and you were very good over the summer doing this. I think you actually had Miss Sabrin when you first learned how to do this. Okay. I will see you when we return. Good luck.